David Reeves had practiced his opening statement 47 times. He'd rehearsed his bow, memorized the proper hand gestures, even learned to recognize the subtle ear movements that indicated Erythian approval or offense. 8 months of preparation for this moment, Earth's first major summit with the Erythian Commonwealth. He couldn't afford to screw it up. The Grand Convergence Hall on Threshold Prime was designed to humble visitors. Crystalline architecture soared overhead, refracting light into patterns that seemed alive. Erythian nobles filled the tiered seating, their long, elegant ears adorned with medals and gems that proclaimed lineage and status. David felt every eye tracking him as he walked the ceremonial path toward the central platform. His heart hammered against his ribs. No pressure, just the future of human-alien relations riding on not accidentally insulting anyone in the next 30 seconds. Then a voice cut through the hall's perfect acoustics, clear, feminine, speaking human standard with unsettling precision. "That's my husband." David's brain stuttered. The words hung in the air while every translator in the room lit up, confirming what he'd heard. Hundreds of Erythian faces turned toward a section of the highborn seating. David followed their gaze and found her, a woman whose silver-threaded ears marked extraordinary status, staring directly at him with an expression he couldn't read. His carefully prepared speech evaporated. Someone in this alien hall had just claimed him as a spouse, and David was absolutely certain he'd never met an Erythian in his entire life. The Erythian Prime Chancellor's ears flattened against her skull. The cultural briefing had called that extreme agitation. David's second-in-command grabbed his elbow, already pulling him toward the exit. Through the chaos of diplomatic protocol fracturing in real time, David couldn't look away from the woman who'd just rewritten his life with 3 impossible words. The secure chamber felt like a very polite prison. David sat across from his own diplomatic team, who were cycling through confusion, anger, and wild speculation at impressive speed. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he watched the Erythian delegation locked in what looked like the alien equivalent of a screaming match. Lots of rapid ear movements and melodic language rising to uncomfortable pitches. "Did you have a relationship we don't know about?" Secretary Chen asked for the 3rd time. "I've never been to Erythian space. I've never met an Erythian outside formal channels." "I don't." David stopped as the chamber door opened. She walked in flanked by guards, and up close she was even more imposing. Tall, elegant, with those long ears adorned in silver that caught the light like captured starlight. Her eyes were the color of Earth's oceans, and they held a certainty that terrified him. "Ambassador Reeves, I am Lyran Ashea of House Ashea, Fleet Commander of the 7th Aerial Guard." Her human standard was flawless. "I apologize for the disruption. We need to speak privately." Every instinct screamed this was a terrible idea. David nodded anyway. With only minimal security present, Lyran sat across from him and said the most insane thing he'd heard all day, which was saying something. "7 years ago, you participated in an interspecies medical research program. You donated genetic material to help develop treatments for cross-species pathogens." David's memory stuttered back to grad school. The donation drive, he'd needed the stipend money. That was anonymous, routine. "How do you?" "Your donation saved my species from extinction." Lyran's voice carried the weight of absolute truth. "The Crimson Plague was killing us. Billions died before we found compatible immune factors in human DNA, specifically your DNA. You are the genetic keystone of the cure that saved my people." The room tilted slightly. David gripped the table. "In Erythian law," Lyran continued, "one who saves the bloodline becomes part of it, not symbolically, literally. You are bound to House Ashea by sacred debt. When I saw your name on the summit roster, I verified the genetic markers. You were always going to be family. I just made it official." David's laugh came out strangled. "By announcing I'm your husband in front of half the galaxy. By honoring truth before it could be buried in politics." Her ears angled forward, sincerity according to his briefing. Would you prefer I'd stayed silent? The news spread through both delegations like wildfire in oxygen. Human officials divided into camps. Opportunists who saw political leverage, paranoids who saw a trap, and a small exhausted group who just wanted to survive the next news cycle. David belonged to the latter. Lyran provided proof. Genetic records certified by 3 independent xenobiology institutes. Cultural legal precedents dating back millennia. Testimony from the scientists who developed the Crimson Plague cure, all confirming the human donor designated as CR 2847 was David Michael Reeves, currently Earth's ambassador to the Erythian Commonwealth. He remembered that donation drive with embarrassing clarity now. He'd been 24, broke, trying to fund his xenobiology thesis. The clinic had been clean and efficient. He'd filled out forms, provided samples, collected his 200 credits, and never thought about it again. How could he have known those cells would travel light years? That they'd become the foundation for saving an entire civilization? This is insane, he told Chen over terrible station coffee. I didn't save anyone. I needed beer money in grad school. Try explaining that to the Erythians currently treating you like a living saint. Chen pulled up the news feeds, David's face plastered across alien networks with titles he couldn't read but could guess at. Half their nobility thinks you're a gift from their gods. The other half thinks Lyran's committing cultural blasphemy by claiming a human. The assassination threat started that afternoon. Erythian conservatives who'd rather see their sacred laws die than evolve. David's security detail tripled. So did Lyran's. He found her in the diplomatic garden, one of the few spaces both species found comfortable. She stood among earth plants and Erythian crystal flowers, her long ears angled back in what he'd learned was exhaustion. Your people hate this, David said. Some of them. Lyran didn't turn. Others understand that laws exist to serve life, not the other way around. You saved my sister, Ambassador. She was 6 years old when the plague took our parents. Your genetic material reached us in time to save her. She's 14 now. Alive because you needed beer money. David's throat tightened. I'm not asking you to love me, Lyran continued. I'm asking you to let me honor a debt that transcends species. Can you do that? He thought about his own sister, dead at 8 from a genetic disorder no one could cure. How he'd have given anything, everything, to save her. How some stranger's beer money could have meant she'd be alive today. Yeah, David said quietly. I think I can. The final summit session felt like a trial. Conservative Erythian nobles demanded the nullification of Lyran's claim, citing precedent, tradition, and the supposed impossibility of sacred bonds crossing species lines. Their arguments were polished, legally sound, and completely ignored the reality that David's DNA had literally saved their civilization. Lyran stood before the assembled nobles, and David saw why she commanded fleets. Her voice carried authority that needed no amplification. You speak of sacred law as if it exists in isolation from reality, she said. When the Crimson Plague ravaged our worlds, we didn't debate whether human assistance was traditional. We begged for it. We accepted help from aliens because the alternative was extinction. Billions of our people live today because a human we'd never met donated genetic material without knowing where it would go or who it would save. She gestured toward David. This man, this human, saved not just bodies but futures. Children born who would have died with their parents, artists who created works you admire, scientists who advanced our knowledge. All of them exist because of an act of generosity so casual he barely remembers it. And now, you want to deny the sacred bond because honoring it is uncomfortable. The chamber fell silent. Lyran's ears angled forward, challenge position. Our laws exist to recognize profound debts. If we cannot recognize this debt, if we cannot honor the being whose gift saved us, then our laws are hollow symbols, and we deserve the extinction we barely escaped. The Prime Chancellor turned to David. Ambassador Reeves, you may speak. David stood, his prepared remarks forgotten again. He thought about his sister, about the donation clinic, about the impossible chain of events that led here. I had a sister, he said simply. Emily. She died when I was 12, genetic disorder, untreatable. I watched my parents break trying to save her, and I couldn't do anything except hold her hand when she was scared. His voice steadied. When I was in grad school, someone came to campus asking for genetic donations for xenobiological research. I didn't think about treaties or politics. I thought about kids like Emily, dying while their families felt helpless. If my DNA could prevent even one family from feeling what mine felt, yeah, I'd give samples. I'd give whatever they needed. He looked at Lyron. I didn't know it would travel to your worlds, didn't know billions of lives hung in the balance. But if it did, if somehow my cells helped keep families whole and children alive, then I'm honored to have mattered, even accidentally, even if it makes the rest of my life complicated as hell. Scattered laughter rippled through the alien assembly, apparently humor translated. The vote took 6 hours. When it concluded, the sacred bond was recognized with ceremonial kinship status. Not marriage, but not nothing either. A new legal category born from unprecedented circumstances, with David maintaining his ambassadorial role while accepting formal ties to House Ashea. Later, on the observation deck, Lyron found him staring at the stars. Regrets? She asked. David thought about Emily's grave on Earth, about the billions of Erythians walking around because of a choice he'd made for 200 credits, about this strange woman whose people now considered him family. No, he said, not a single cell's worth. Lyron's laugh was like crystal chimes in wind, beautiful and entirely alien. Her long ears angled in what he'd learned was contentment. Good, she said, because you're stuck with us now, Ambassador. Sacred bonds don't have expiration dates. David smiled, watching distant ships navigate the starfield. His sister was still gone. His life was still irrevocably complicated. But somewhere in the universe, 14 billion Erythians were alive and thriving, and one of them, a 14-year-old girl he'd never met, existed because he'd needed beer money in grad school. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Lyron stood beside him in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds bound by the strangest twist of fate either species had encountered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, political maneuvering, cultural integration, the constant work of building bridges between species. But tonight, under stars that belonged to no one and everyone, they could simply exist as proof that sometimes the most careless acts of kindness echo across the cosmos in ways no one could predict. Thank you, Lyron said quietly. For my sister, for all of us. David nodded, unable to trust his voice. In the reflection of the viewport, he saw both their faces, human and Erythian, separate and connected, impossible and absolutely real. The universe, he decided, had a weird sense of humor, but he couldn't argue with the results.